All right, now we're going to put this all together. So we've covered all the key terms individually, so let's practice identifying them in a more integrated scenario. So we have a summary of all of our terms here. We have the population is the entire group of interest. The sample is a subset used to collect the data. The parameter is a population measure. Remember, that measures or summarizes the population. The statistic measures or summarizes the sample. The data is the recorded information. Think of it as the answers to our question. And the variable, you want to think of that as the trait or the condition or the characteristic that we're asking about. So think of this as the question. So we're going to match each term to its example. So part A is asking about all the employees at a tech firm. All employees would be the entire group of people that were interested in studying. So for part A, we would label that as the population. It's the entire group of interest. And a key word to help me find that is that we're looking at all employees. 150 surveyed employees, that's the subgroup of the population that we want to collect information from. So the 150 surveyed employees would be the sample. Part C says the average number of vacation days for all employees. So here's a number, even though they don't give us the specific number, the average number is a value that's going to summarize the number of vacation days for all employees. The average number of vacation days for Part C, this is coming from all employees. When that value comes from the entire population, then that value represents a parameter. It's a number that summarizes the entire population. So for Part C, this is going to be the parameter. For D, this says the average vacation days for the 150 surveyed. This is a value as well that summarizes the 150 people that were surveyed. So this summarizes a group of people, but it doesn't summarize the entire group of people. It summarizes only that subset that we used for the sample. So because we're looking at a number, even though they don't give us the specific value, we're looking at a number, the average of vacation days for the 150 surveyed, that's a number that summarizes the subgroup. So that's a number that summarizes the sample. That's the statistic. So for Part D, this would be the statistic. So Part E says the vacation days that each employee takes. So this is what we're going to be asking each employee, and each of those answers are going to take on a different value. This is the question that we're asking. So for Part E, this would be the variable. That's the trait or the condition that we're looking for. Now, when we list out all that information, that is the data. So Part F is the recorded list of vacation days. So when we collect that information, the set of all of those answers, that represents the data. So Part F would be data. Right, let's look at example 8. We have a transportation authority that observes a number of passengers per day on a bus line. So each day, someone counts a number of people that use a particular bus line, and they randomly select 30 days and record the passenger accounts. Now, the first question says, what's the sample size? The sample size is the number of values that you have in your sample. Because we are collecting information for each day for 30 days, our sample size is going to be 30. Now, the population, if we look at the next part, the population consists of all the possible days the bus line operates. That's what we're trying to focus on. What is the variable? That is the question that we're trying to ask, right? The data is the list of the actual answers, while the variable is the characteristic or the trait that we're looking for, and we want to think of that as our question. Well, what are we asking about? We are asking about the number of passengers per day on the bus line. So our variable is the number of passengers per day on the bus line. And that's what changes from day to day, and that's what gives us our list of data. Is the average of passengers for the 30 days a parameter or a statistic? Since the population is all of the possible days, and we're only collecting a sample of 30 days, when we calculate the average based on just those 30 days, that is based on a sample. So when I find the average for those 30 days, since it's based on the sample, it is going to be considered a statistic. So to wrap up the lesson, things that we talked about the difference between what a population and a sample was. We talked about the difference between a parameter and a statistic. And we also mentioned that there are two definitions of statistics. We talked about the difference between variables and data. And we talked about in this last example that a sample size is the number of values in your sample. And it's really important that you're able to correctly identify these elements when you're looking at different scenarios, because it's essential for you when you're designing a study or interpreting a result. If you have any questions about any of these terms, please reach out to your teacher.